Hello and welcome back to another Bible reading and discussion.
That's it.
We
That's
are,
what we do.
Yep, we are in Luke 7. And once again, we're always going to ask if you would go ahead and hit that heart button or the care button. Leave us a comment. Let us know you're here. Share. You don't have to just do a public share. You can.
No.
Share it personally with somebody.
Somebody you'd like to just take a few minutes, 20 minutes or so, just check out some of the gospel stuff, Jesus stuff.
Yep.
And do it.
And remember, our one day is coming up, a couple days away.
Sunday.
And you still have time to invite someone. It's never too late.
Yes, you do. And you still have time to come.
It's like the parable of the workers that come at the last hour. You can invite them Saturday night, and you might see people show up Sunday.
We came awfully close to not having a whole lot of places this past Sunday. So we've got plans to set up Seesaw over Creation.
Absolutely. So, and that's kind of, what we're going to talk about in Luke 7. It's interesting sometimes the place where you find faith, right? Mm-hmm. And sometimes it's not always in the places you think.
No.
So
in fact, it wasn't among the religious leaders.
Yes. So we're going to jump right in, Luke 7.
When he had completed all his discourses, this is commonly called Sermon on the Plain, in the hearing of the people, he went to Capernaum. And a centurion's slave, who was highly regarded by him, was sick and about to die. When he heard about Jesus, he sent some Jewish elders asking him to come save the life of his slave. When they came to Jesus, they earnestly implored him, saying, "He is worthy for you to grant this to him, for he loves our nation, and it was he who built our synagogue." Now Jesus started on his way with them, and when he was not far from the house, the centurion sent friends, saying to him, "Lord, do not trouble yourself further, for I am not worthy for you to come under my roof. For this reason I did not even consider myself worthy to come to you. But just say the word, and my servant will be healed. For I also am a man placed under authority with soldiers under me. And I say to this one, go, and he goes, and to another, come, and he comes, and to my slave, do this, and he does it." Now when Jesus heard this, he marveled at him, turned and said to the crowd that was following him, "I say to you, not even in Israel have I found such a great faith." Whoa.
I always find this striking in the sense of he just got done from the Sermon on the Plain or Sermon on the Mount. Matthew 8 has a very similar, historical event chronology. And all these crowds are coming to him. He says, if you want to be my disciple, you got to be poor in spirit. You've got to trust in me, weep. And yet we have this centurion.
What does it look like? A Roman centurion.
He's not a Jew.
No, but he's been impressed.
He's been impressed. And he says, I didn't even see myself, though he's a man of authority.
He's more impressed than the Jewish leaders are.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
And I didn't find myself worthy to even come and speak to you. So he sent a Jewish entourage, because obviously Jewish religious leaders have a closer connection with God than everyone else, right? It's kind of like what people think with preachers.
Right.
They come to preachers and say, "Can you pray for me?"
Yeah.
And I understand James 5. James 5 talks about the prayer of a righteous man availeth much, and you want to find people who have a good relationship with God. But that can be anyone. It could be a centurion.
Yeah. Improbable people are constantly coming up in the Gospels.
It's those who trust, and sometimes I'm going to be honest with you, those who aren't in the religious sphere end up having to trust God more.
Yes.
Because they're out in everyday life, struggling.
We kind of have a bubble.
We do have a bubble, and we have to acknowledge that at times. And we got to go out of our bubbles.
We do.
And
get scary out there.
And get out with the world. And this man comes, and I love.
There was a lady at Carnes, sat on the front row. I won't call her name. She's deceased now. And I told her one day, I forget what the nature of the conversation was, but I said, "You're a better person than I am," and she was. Yeah. And I meant that totally sincerely. It's not a preachers are the best folks thing. Hopefully we're decent enough, but still, a lot of people that don't get a lot of attention are really good people.
There are people that I know a whole lot more about the Bible than, but they know a whole lot more about how to live out their faith in everyday life than I do.
Yes, I know what you mean. It's impressive just watching them in action.
And I love that. That doesn't mean I don't feel jealous of that. No. I am so thankful that we are at a congregation here.
Yes.
That when people are looking up to me, they don't realize I'm looking up to them.
Lenore City is a we have our problems, and everybody's not perfect by any means, but we got a bunch of good folks
Oh,
here.
my.
This is a good place to be.
Faith and trust are found here.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where am I?
I think you didn't finish verse 10.
Okay.
So you're 10.
That makes sense. When those who had been sent returned to the house, found a slave in good health. He spoke a word. Sure enough,
It happened.
he was healed. Now, if you read Matthew's account,
Which we did.
which we did, you would think that the centurion's doing this. But you read Luke's account, and you realize there's an entourage going back and forth. Reason being, from a Jewish Eastern mindset, the person taking the message, they're not really all they're doing is taking the message.
Well, it's like an ambassador.
Yeah, they're representing somebody else.
Yeah. And it can be as if the king was saying it without ever having to be the one saying it.
He has the authority to speak for the king only as far as the king has spoken.
Absolutely.
Indeed, he does. Soon afterwards, he went to a city called Nain. His disciples were going along with him, accompanied by a large crowd. Those crowds just keep following him. These are the crowds that will eventually say, crucify him. So that's an interesting story that unfolds. Now, as he approached the gate of the city, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow. So she doesn't have a man associated with her now, which in that culture was pretty important.
Yep.
And a sizable crowd from the city was with her. When the Lord saw her, he felt compassion for her. Yes, he does miracles to establish who he is, but yes, he's a man of compassion who cares about people as well. He said to her, do not weep. And he came and touched the coffin, and the bearers came to a halt. He said, young man, I say to you, arise. The dead man sat up and began to speak, and Jesus gave him back to his mother. Fear gripped them all. They began glorifying God, saying, a great prophet has arisen among us. God has visited his people. This report concerning him went out all over Judea and the surrounding district. Now, you would think, it does cause a stir, but you would think this would get everybody saying, we better follow that man. Whatever he says, we better do it. But it doesn't go quite that far.
No. And the fear here is probably a reverence, that reverence fear, because there's a lot of times when Jesus says, do not be afraid, and then they fear.
Yeah.
There is this, imagine realizing when you see a work being done that you're in the presence of God.
You're at a funeral somewhere, you're in the receiving line, and you go up to the casket and the guy gets up. I'm probably going to run out of the building.
But then you look to the man who raised that person, and you go, there's something here.
Something's going on here.
Something's going on.
The disciples of John reported to him about all these things. Summoning two of his disciples, John sent them. So John's hearing about what Jesus is doing. He's in prison, and he's going to send some folks to the Lord. Are you the expected one? Now, he's been given reason from God to know that he is, but he's a human being and he's in prison. Or do we look for someone else? When the men came to him, they said, John the Baptist has sent us to you to ask, are you the expected one, the Messiah? Or do we look for someone else? At that very time, he cured many people of diseases and afflictions and evil spirits, gave sight to many who were blind, and he answered and said to them, just go tell John what you've seen and heard. The blind receive sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, the poor have the gospel preached to them. Blessed is he who does not take offense at me. He's quoting from prophecies about the Messiah.
And that's the Luke 4 when he reads from the scroll, Isaiah 40.
Those things that they've been reading about all these years and generations, he's the one they were talking about.
Do you think there's anything? Okay, so John was obviously raised in a similar way that Jesus was, them being close and relative. So he was probably brought to the temple and all those kinds of things. Probably was with Jesus that time with all his family. Yeah. And the Jews have had such an influence over their people that even when they see the right thing, they struggle being fully convinced. And
it's one thing to talk about something. It's another thing to see it. And that doesn't mean you're not a faithful person or a good person or anything like that.
No, there's doubt.
You're a human being.
Well, we were kind of discussing this not too long ago. Actually, I think it may have been this morning when there are people, when they start to get the real deal, they've heard this their whole life. They've been over in this box. And they start hearing and seeing Jesus for who he really is, the gospel for what it really is. It's like they see it, but to actually make the
Yes.
move from here to here is
Yes.
scary.
It is. It's like what we saw. If you're used to the old wine, you
Yeah.
know it's good enough,
Yeah.
even though you
And-
know it's not.
But once you get a taste of the new and you fully embrace
you can't
it,
turn back.
you can't go back. So Jesus is more reassuring John.
Mhm.
But I love the comparison between John and the centurion here. The centurion has not had all that baggage
No.
of years and years and years and years of that Jewish way of thinking. He sees it.
Hey, it is what it
It
is.
is what it is.
He's one of that Roman pragmatist there. Oh, there it is.
Yeah. And even John the Baptist have, and I love that these huge people of faith also still need reassurance.
And Jesus doesn't
no.
pound on him. He appreciates John.
Yeah.
When the messengers of John had left, he began to speak to the crowds about John. What did you go out into the wilderness to see? A reed shaken by the wind? But what did you go out to see? A man dressed in soft clothing? Those who are splendidly clothed and live in luxury are found in royal palaces. But what did you go out to see? A prophet? Yes, I say to you, and one who is more than a prophet. This is the one that was written about. Behold, I send my messenger ahead of you, who will prepare your way before you. I say to you, among those born of women, there is no one greater than John. Yet, he who is least in the kingdom of God is greater than he. When all the people and the tax collectors heard this, they acknowledged God's justice, having been baptized with the baptism of John. But the Pharisees and lawyers rejected the purpose for themselves, not having been baptized of John.
So what do we mean the least in the kingdom is going to be greater than John?
That's an interesting one, isn't it? What is John talking about? The Messianic day.
He's preparing and still looking forward to.
But he never gets to see it.
He never gets to see it in its fulfillment of the Spirit coming with power.
He would have loved to have seen that.
He would have loved to have seen it. And all of us who get to witness that and to continue to witness that for thousands and thousands of years later,
what a blessing.
We have a blessing that is greater than John.
Yes.
It's not that we're better.
That's exactly what it is.
It's not that we're better than John.
No. It's just, this is the age of the ages. This
Yeah.
is what Saul been going for since Genesis 3:15.
Yep. And though John, one day, when all things are going to be restored, he's going to be a part of that too.
Everybody, Moses who got to go to the promised land, then the transfiguration. Everybody gets to be with God.
Everybody gets to be there. It's going to be great. Awesome. All right. I think it's my turn.
I think it is.
Did you read 30?
I did.
Okay. I do want to talk about that just for a second because I find that interesting.
I was hoping you would.
They had rejected the plan God had for themselves. They rejected baptism, meaning, and this is John's baptism.
And in a snarky way.
Yeah, in John's baptism, they, it was for repentance, for the forgiveness of sins. Mark tells us that. And sometimes you don't have to fully understand what a thing is. You just have to know God has asked you to do it.
Go like Naaman. When he's asked to dip 7 times in the Jordan, he talks about, we got better rivers than this back home in Damascus and Syria. And he has a wise counselor, kind of lets him settle down a little bit. He said, well, you know what? He just asked you to dip and be cleansed. Why don't you just do that? And he did. And he was cleansed.
Francis Chan actually, had a great, finally he kind of came out and, baptism is one of those, it can be a very contentious discussion.
It can be.
And
it's pretty straightforward in the Bible, but it can be contentious.
Francis Chan has a YouTube video when he's talking about baptism, and he just kind of stops. You just kind of see almost like the light bulb. He's like, Jesus did it. Jesus asked us to do it. Why don't we just do it?
So what else?
What really? And that's kind of what you knew you have to. He's talking to the Pharisees. You have to come out. All the people are seeing it. They're repenting.
Do they have the full theological understanding of it? Probably not.
No.
But they know they're told to do it.
But he says, this is God's plan for you. Just do it.
Yes.
It's like the Nike symbol. Just do it.
Just do it. Get the swoosh out there. Yeah. No. I have a sermon. After 52 years of this, I should.
Yeah.
And it's called, If Baptism Isn't for the Remission of Sins. And I've got like 20 things. Why is the Bible worded the way that it's worded, if in fact it isn't for remission of sins? Not that the water does anything, it's the blood of Jesus that does it. Yeah. It's responsive faith like Naaman dipping in the Jordan. Jordan didn't have any magic to it. He didn't earn it. God said do it, he did it, and he was cleansed. That was it.
Well, even Colossians 2 tells us that it's a work of God.
It is a work of God. It
The
couldn't
same
be our
power-
work. We couldn't do that. It's not putting away the filth of the flesh.
Yeah, the same power that raised Jesus from the dead
Mm-hmm.
raises us from the dead.
Just, okay.
do it.
I don't see, it's what it says.
Yeah. All right, verse 31. We're going to change gears a little bit.
Mm.
To what then should I compare the people of this generation? And what are they like? I would hate for Jesus to come give a social commentary.
Yeah, I know. Hey guys, let me tell you what's going on with you people.
It's like, stop! They are like children sitting in the marketplace and calling to each other. And remember all their discussions on children in the gospel so far.
yeah.
They don't have much to say good about children.
No.
We played the flute for you, but you didn't dance. We sang a lament, but you didn't weep. So a lot of funeral stuff, wedding stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
For when John the Baptist did not come eating bread or drinking wine, you say he has a demon. So John withheld himself from things. He's got a demon,
Can't win.
right? The Son of Man comes eating and drinking, and you say, look, a glutton and a drunkard, a friend of tax collectors and sinners, yet wisdom is vindicated by all her children.
Yeah.
You know, because what do children do when they hear music?
They respond.
They respond. And what do children do when they, no matter who it is or what it is, when they hear about death, when the funeral's going on, children even understand these things.
Yes, it often
They can see
gets
it.
them more than adults.
Yeah. And he's saying, John was sent, I'm being sent. Apparently almost two different ministries, and yet you won't accept
You won't
any of
dance to
them.
either one of them.
You won't dance either.
No, even kids have better sense than that.
Yeah. And so then one of the Pharisees, so, they're going to invite Jesus into his
Oh,
house.
we're going to start the dining 3 times in Luke.
Yep.
Each time, I'm sure they're wondering, what were we thinking?
Why did we invite him in? It's like when they ask him a question, they go, no.
No, man.
One of the Pharisees invited him in to eat with him. He entered the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. And a woman in town who was a sinner found out that Jesus was reclining at the table. I love Luke, and she was a sinner.
Mm-hmm.
And once again, everybody's a sinner, but this goes all the way back to those who are sick, those who understand their need for Jesus.
And probably she was a prostitute.
Yeah,
Which is, who wants to have anything to do with her?
Who wants-
Well, Jesus.
he does. He does. She brought an alabaster jar of perfume, stood behind him at his feet, weeping, and began to wash his feet with her tears.
She'd been doing fairly well for whatever she's doing. She said, this is not inexpensive stuff.
No.
But it doesn't mean anything to her now.
But she probably used a lot of her money that she had obtained through
Yep.
all her life in sin to now bless Jesus with it.
And that which would have been very important to her up to she met Jesus, it's not important to her anymore.
No. She wiped his feet with her hair, kissing them and anointing them with the perfume. When the Pharisee who had invited him saw this,
Man,
this would be strange, but
but
when you see a person's heart being poured out, tears and crying and blessing
yes,
the Son of God, couldn't you not help be moved?
touched by that. Apparently she has contacted him before.
Yeah.
She knows about him. She hears he's there, and she wants to let him know, thank you so much. Her sins are forgiven. She's probably decided to leave the lifestyle she was in and do better. So many things about her life because of this man, and she wants him to know it.
And here's what they have to say about it.
Yeah.
If this man were a prophet, this man, if he were a prophet, would know who and what kind of woman this is who's touching him. She's a sinner.
And here's the irony of it. He knows who the guy is, Simon, who's saying that. And that's not so good.
Jesus is a prophet. He does know she's a sinner.
Yes, he
And
does.
yet, see, that's more powerful. The fact that he knows who she is and still lets her do what she's doing. Don't think for a moment that you can't bring any sin to Jesus,
He's seen it all.
that he won't cleanse, touch, forgive you of, and feel like you are too unworthy to be in his presence.
Who she is isn't who she was.
Yeah. Yep. So Jesus replied to him, Simon, I have something to say to you.
Ooh.
He said, say it, teacher. Almost like a challenge.
Dangerous there,
I mean,
man.
A creditor, so he goes into his parables. A creditor has 2 debtors. One owed 500 denarii and the other 50. Since they could not pay it back, he graciously forgave them both. So which of them will love him more? So it basically tells Simon, hey, you may not think yourself as bad,
I suppose.
but you still have a debt.
Mm-hmm.
You still have a debt.
I think he sees where this is going. Hence his less than enthusiastic answer.
Yeah.
Because, there we go. Could you be the guy who doesn't appreciate maybe?
Yeah, 43, Simon answered, I suppose the one who he forgave more. You have judged correctly, he told him. Turning to the woman, he said to Simon, do you see this woman? I entered your house. You gave me no water for my feet, but she, with her tears, has washed my feet and wiped them with her hair. So it's interesting. When Jesus washes feet later, he's not the first to perform this sign.
No, and she's doing it in a most humble way. The feet are not things that in Eastern culture don't get as much attention as they do in ours.
Yeah.
And lowly servants dealt with feet and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, she's doing it in spades.
Yeah. It says, you gave me no kiss, which would be a greeting.
It's a common garden variety greeting, yes.
Yeah. But she hasn't stopped kissing my feet since I came in. You didn't anoint my head with olive oil, but she has anointed my feet with perfume. And once again, if he was master, if he was rabbi, and they were acknowledging him as rabbi by inviting him in and giving him the seat,
yes,
and then not performing all of the duties they normally would have, they have insulted him.
Snub.
Therefore, I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven. That's why she loved much.
Who is forgiven little loves little. He didn't mean that Simon's forgiven little. He said that's what Simon thinks.
And once again, it's not even about comparing. I have more sins. It's about how you feel about your sin. Mm-hmm. If you feel like Paul calls himself the chief of sinners, he's probably not the worst of the worst.
No.
But that's how he feels in his own perspective with the Lord. I am the worst.
When you have those moments like Simon Peter or Isaiah has, where you realize you compared to God, you realize that if you get mercy and you get forgiveness, it's gigantic. You're not thinking about anybody else.
And there is no comparison game. Well, I'm a little better than this. No, there is no little better.
No, we're all way lost.
And when you're this far separated, an inch.
Let's not quibble over that, yeah.
Therefore I tell you, but the one who is forgiven little loves little. Then he said to her, your sins are forgiven. Those who were at the table with him began to say among themselves, who is this man who even forgives sins? And he said to the woman, your faith has saved you. Go in peace. Faith saves. It's going to be faith. It's going to be trust every single time. If you don't trust Jesus, first, you'll never follow. No. That's why back early in Luke 7, why they wouldn't go be baptized, a simple command that Naaman was given, other people were forgiven. They didn't trust the process.
That's it. You gotta lay it all down and trust Jesus. Whatever he says, whether you understand it or not, it's what you need to do.
Yeah. So according to our Bible reading plan, and once again, if you want it, we can send that to you, or you can just keep listening to us. We only have 3 this week, so we're not going to have a Bible reading tomorrow. But we are going to plan to do a podcast live on Thursday, which is tomorrow when they're watching this.
Interesting social commentary coming up.
Yep, and hopefully we do it right.
I hope so.
But anyway, we love you.
Yes, we do.
And if you love this, give us the heart, give us the care, give us a comment, and share it with your friends.
Let them listen to Jesus and think about it. It can't hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. We love you. Yes. God bless.
Bye-bye.